Look who it is! A high school graduate loser! Are you sure you're in the right place? This is an expensive hotel. I paused when I heard a familiar voice that appeared to ridicule me. I turned around and there she was, Lily, a classmate from high school. I was surprised to see her suddenly, but I had a feeling she had been like this every time I saw her in my memories. It had been so long. You are a poor guy. I don't think you are fit to be here. I can see you are really putting yourself out. However, Lily didn't seem to be particularly interested in renewing old acquaintanceships. She looked down at me with a giggle. I felt nostalgic, yet I couldn't help but sigh, convinced that she hadn't changed. I had no other choice. It seemed that she'd been mistaken about everything. I had to make her realize one thing. You know, Lily, my name is Ethan Smith. I grew up in a poor family. It was because my family did not have a father. But it was okay. My mom was always joyful and lively, and she remains a powerful figure to this day. While raising me, my mom worked for a corporation and was promoted from part-time to full-time, and from a full-time employee to a section manager. Well, I'm off to work, Ethan. She would go to work early in the morning and come home in the evening to take care of me, and she would work until late. Maybe it was because I used to see my mom answer the call from work. Whenever I answered my house phone, I'd say, "Yes, this is Smith's residence. Unfortunately, my mother is out of the house." I recall the person on the other end of the line being really impressed when I answered the phone like that. I'm sure that must have been exhausting labor, yet my mom appeared to enjoy her job. She would say, "It doesn't matter where you are now. If you continue to work hard, your dreams will come true." I love my mom acting like that. She was strong and cool. She was more than enough of a role model to make me want to be someone who could work hard like her. Since I started school, I studied hard and took my classes seriously. "Ethan, you're always studying." I was aware that I was prioritizing studies over socializing with friends. Of course, I also wanted to have fun, which was appropriate for my age. But in the future, I wanted to earn my own money so that my mom could have a comfortable life. Even though I was a small child, I thought that I could escape poverty by studying. In fact, the wisdom I acquired through study became my weapon. I pushed aside my desire to play and continued to study. I am grateful to my past self. Thanks to my efforts, I was able to go on to a public high school, which was said to be the smartest in the area. My mom was happier than me when she found out that I had been accepted. She even bought a cake to celebrate me. After entering high school, I continued to study hard. I always kept my grades at the top of the class. I thought my school life was going well. However, there was one girl who disliked the idea that I was the top student in my class. "How can you be first over me? And it turned out to be you, a poor bastard." That was Lily Moore. She's the complete opposite of me. Her family was rich and she was quite beautiful. Her parents were always willing to buy her anything she desired. She had no problem whatsoever. Unlike me, who had studied almost by myself, Lily had a private tutor to help her with her studies. Of course, I knew that she was putting in a lot of effort on her own. But in the test results, she always came in second and I came in first. Since it was always like that, I guess her pride was badly hurt by the fact that she could never beat me. "A guy like you has nothing to do but study." Furthermore, the person who won her over was not a wealthy kid, but rather a poor one. This fact must have aggravated her even more. She would mess with me at every chance she got. For example, when I was eating lunch at noon. "I see you poor people can only eat the kind of miserable stuff for lunch. I felt sorry for you. Maybe I can give you something to eat." She would make fun of me. You know what? Even though my mom works, she woke up early to make this. So, can you stop criticizing it? When I said so, she left without saying anything. With such things going on, I thought she was a pain in the ass. During my break, I was solving an application problem that I couldn't figure out the answer to. Can you even understand that? That's why you poor people are helpless. She would mess around with me. Do you know the answer? She proudly showed me how she solved the questions she learned from her tutor. She was probably just bragging about it. But it was thanks to her that I figured out how to solve the question and got the answer. Lily, you're amazing. Thank you. When I thanked her honestly, she looked a little nervous. I'm sure you poor people couldn't solve it on your own, she replied. I was a little annoyed that she kept messing with me after that. But before I knew it, it had become a part of our daily life. When I noticed it, we had moved on to the 12th grade. As our studies became more difficult, we had more things to think about. Even in the 12th grade, I was always in first place, and Lily was in second place. But in the 3rd grade, Lily would sometimes drop down to almost the 10th place. I was concerned, but more than that, I was surprised that I considered her as my rival. Unlike poor people, I am busy with other things besides studying. However, if I had asked her how she was doing, I knew she would have criticized me as a poor guy. By the way, which university are you going to apply for? I'm thinking about New York University. Oh, me too. Then let's see who can pass with the highest score. It seemed that I didn't need to worry. We found out that we were aiming for the same university. Lily became even more competitive with me. She started to mess with me every day. The dizzying days passed and the autumn winds blew. We were busy studying for the entrance exam that was coming up soon. It was at that time. I stayed after school to stay in the study room. Suddenly, my homeroom teacher came in. Ethan, your mother! My homeroom teacher took me to a nearby general hospital. There, I found my mom sitting on her bed in the hospital room, gazing outside in a daze. She noticed me and quickly smiled. Oh, Ethan, I'm sorry for making you worry. It looks like I collapsed at work, but don't worry. I'll get better and leave the hospital soon. Get some rest. I am sorry I didn't notice your condition till you collapsed. I was ashamed of myself for not noticing that my mom was pushing herself too hard till she collapsed. Are you her son? She should not return to work for a while. If you let her push herself any further, you can be sure she will die of exhaustion the next time. The doctor stopped me and told me this when I left the hospital room. Looking back, I think she was trying not to show me how weak she was. Or perhaps she was feeling frustrated that she was dragging her child down. After returning home, I recalled my mom's face in the hospital room and what the doctor had said. She would not be able to work for a while. If she didn't work, we struggled to make ends meet for the next month, let alone pursue further schooling. Of course, I had some thoughts about how hard I had been studying. However, what I should do at the moment was obvious. I decided to give up on college and get a job. The week after this happened, the school's academic test was held. For the first time, Lily came in first place and I came in 10th. I was in a state of conflicting emotions once the rankings were announced. Then, I heard footsteps approaching. The results were announced, and I knew there was only one person who would approach me in this manner. Why did you cut corners? You should take it seriously, I told her as she approached me, grabbing me by the chest. I'm going to quit school and get a job. Why? But you've studied all this time for this. I've been trying to beat you for the past 3 years. You should take responsibility. She shouted at me. I wanted to tell her that I was really swamped. After taking a breath, I said while avoiding her gaze, I'm sorry, Lily. Lily was unable to say anything else. She seemed to be choking on her words. Why do you say such a thing? I wondered what she would say after that. But she went away without saying anything. After that, I stopped studying and started looking for a job. In the end, I passed her in the hallway, but I never spoke to her again until graduation. But at a time when everyone was busy doing their own thing, we didn't have time to care about each other. I had my hands full with myself and my mom until I found a job. I didn't even know who was going to take what path until I got my own affairs in order. I didn't talk to her about it, but I heard that she was going to Harvard after graduation, not to a domestic college. I knew she was capable of it. I left the high school without seeing her again. After graduating from high school, I worked hard to support my family. I wanted to make my mom's life easier. I didn't want to worry her. I started job hunting later than most of my classmates, but I happened to get a job at a major local hotel group. Just to strengthen the plan for foreigners, they were looking for people who could speak Spanish. Surprisingly, Spanish for entrance examination was useful. When I started working at the hotel, I was unfamiliar with everything. Learning a job was different from studying at school. Above all, the schedule was drastically different from when I was a student. Each day passed quickly, and the fast pace of my life only made me more tired. It was hard to think of a plan for foreigners while doing my regular work. However, when I felt like I was about to lose my heart, I remembered my mom and tried my best to work with a cheerful smile on my face. If you keep trying, your dreams will come true. Mom's words, which she was fond of saying, would always push me forward. So I'd work hard every day thinking, I'll do my best again tomorrow. While working, I would formulate a plan and submit it. Once the plan was approved, I coordinated with various departments until it was implemented. Through repeated trial and error, the number of foreign visitors increased rapidly. I looked at the original plan for foreigners for reference, but it was old-fashioned and not efficient enough for today's market. I decided to rework it from scratch. From the website and brochures to the information in the hotel, I changed everything. As a result, the number of visitors increased even more. My ideas were also linked directly to word of mouth. Even though the number of foreign guests increased, the number of staff members who were faced with language barriers increased. After hearing their opinion, I started to create a foreign customer service manual. I felt that those who were not good at Spanish needed a manual that taught them the basics. This manual is very easy to understand. I wish the Spanish textbooks were easy to understand like this. I felt flattered every time a customer service staff member praised me for this. It was as if all the studying I had been doing was paying off. I remember I was very happy. The trust of the staff was transmitted to upper management. Also, my suggestions for improvement led to an increase in sales. My boss also seemed satisfied. I was promoted at an unusually fast pace for a high school graduate. By the time I noticed, I found myself transferred to a top-tier hotel at a group in New York. If you keep working hard, your dreams will come true. Mom was right. When I told my mom about the transfer, she was as happy as if it were her own. It reminded me of when I took the high school entrance exam, and I felt good thinking about it. Ethan, you did a fantastic job, but don't push yourself too hard. Well, that goes the same for you, Mom. Before moving to New York, we spent time together as a family chatting about such a thing. And so a little while after working at the luxury hotel, I happened to run into Lily again. Lily was helping her father with his business, and she happened to come to this hotel. Could it be that you are a janitor of this hotel? Well, I guess not. Poor people aren't even allowed to clean here. I glanced at my watch while she made fun of me. I had a little more time before my next stop, but I still had things to do. I couldn't waste my time talking to her. Why don't you say something? She spoke to me, but I knew that if I said something, she would say something else. You are a loser who only graduated from high school. It's hilarious how you're really putting yourself out coming to this fancy hotel. Her words and actions appeared harsher than they had been in high school. I let out a sigh at her abuse. Just as I was about to leave the place, the business partner I had an appointment with came in. The business partner, who was more than 12 years older than me, looked at me immediately and said, Mr. Smith, thank you for waiting. It's a pleasure to work with you again. He shook my hand firmly. As I was about to speak, I was interrupted by Lily. Why are you treating him so politely, Dad? I was surprised by the unexpected coincidence. The CEO of the company I had been working with since I moved here turned out to be Lily's father. Come to think of it, their last names were both Moore. As I was thinking about that, Mr. Moore stared at Lily sharply and reprimanded her. What are you talking about? Watch your mouth, you idiot. Although he kept the volume of his voice down, it was obvious that he was angry. Lily was at a loss, so I simply told her, This is my hotel. There was a reason why I was transferred to this hotel. At my former hotel, I implemented a number of measures for foreigners, and they led to an excellent results. As a result, sales doubled. My achievements were even called great achievements. My skill in accomplishing such a feat was highly evaluated, and I was transferred to my current position as a manager of this luxury hotel. Are you saying that you are the manager of this hotel? When I finished speaking, Lily looked stunned. She seemed to be at a loss for words. I'm glad to meet you today, Mr. Moore. Thank you for your time. While she mumbled something and fell silent, I gave the wholesaler, Mr. Moore, the greeting I had failed to mention earlier. It seemed that the wholesaler of the hotel was indeed Lily's father. Lily's father said, I'm sorry for what my daughter said. He apologized, but this was not the first time she had done something like this. She was always like this in high school too. I was feeling nostalgic and chuckled as we chatted about our high school days. After that, Lily and her father often visited the hotel for business meetings. Lily was not as vigorous as she had been on the first day of our reunion. She was a bit quiet. She appeared childlike and unhappy, possibly due to scolding from her father. However, whenever we had a business meeting, she always discussed business topics. I assumed she hadn't changed as she grew older, but then I realized she might have matured. Since then, she stopped calling me poor. After the several visits Lily made to the hotel, one day, after we had concluded our business meeting without incident, Lily suddenly stopped me. I want to talk to you sometime, without business. I was honestly surprised, but I couldn't find any reason to refuse her offer, so I nodded my head. On the appointed day, I went to the cafe where we had arranged to meet. I found Lily already there waiting for me. So, what do you want to talk about? We took a seat, ordered drinks, and then moved on the main topic over a cup of coffee. I feel like we are working. That's because we're always talking about business stuff. That's true, but... She seemed to be having a hard time saying what she wanted to say, and her mouth was wriggling. I was waiting for her to say something, since I had time to spare. I'm sorry, I just wanted to apologize for what I said that day. And I'm sorry for making fun of you as being poor when we were in high school. I was surprised by what she suddenly said. I hurriedly made her look up. Why are you suddenly saying that to me? When she looked up, she looked like she was about to cry. I panicked even more. I didn't know what to do when a woman was about to cry in front of me. As I was flustered, she managed to hold back her tears and continue to speak. She explained that her father has raised her as an elite since she was a toddler, and told me that she was not allowed to play with her friends in the past. Lily had always loved pretty cakes and had a dream of becoming a pastry chef, but her father denied her that dream. She was denied everything she wanted to do. She was placed on the rail that had been laid out by her father up to that moment. Lily sometimes explained things to me quietly. Lily looked so fragile. I knew that I would never be able to escape from this environment. I met you when I was thinking like that. When she saw me studying without giving in to my poverty, she compared me to herself, who had given up. Lily acknowledged that she was irritated by how different I was and vented her feelings on me. I had no idea. I listened intently to what she said. Lily was someone who had made fun of me, but she was also a friend who competed with me. But, while I started to hang out with you, I started to think that I could change my current environment. Only then did she defy her father's wishes and declare her intention to attend a domestic university. I guess she meant the university she was aiming for with me. But I ended up getting a job at that point. Lily thought that she couldn't change her environment. So she went to Harvard University, which was originally recommended by her father. Yes, it was true that in her senior year of high school, she had been struggling with her scores in the exam. She must have conflicted with her father. While I was feeling as if the pieces of the puzzles were falling into place, Lily's story ended. After listening to the whole story, I learned that she was still struggling with her problems. I wondered why she told me about it in that situation. Lily, I looked her in the eye and said the words I always treasured. It doesn't matter where you are right now. If you keep working hard, your dreams will come true. Her eyes widened even more, and she looked at me in amazement. You wanted a job making pretty sweets, didn't you? Why don't you try it with me? Then we made up and started working together. It just so happened that I wanted to develop a new line of sweets to serve at a hotel restaurant. I knew how good Lily was, and in terms of acquaintanceship, I trusted her more than anyone else. Lily's father was very negative at first. He refused her proposal because his company didn't handle those products and said he couldn't accept that idea. But Lily never gave up and kept coming back with proposals. When he was wavering, I made a direct proposal to him and encouraged him to go ahead with it. Finally, he relented and agreed. Together with Lily, we researched ingredients, secured suppliers, and succeeded in creating a course of sweets. When the project was completed, Lily was in tears. She said that she wasn't crying, but then the tears started to fall. I was so happy that her dream had finally come true. Our sweets gained popularity. After being featured in major magazines and social media platforms. As a result, we received more inquiries than we had ever imagined. We ran out of stock in the blink of an eye. Lily and I were forced to place orders. After the work settled down, Lily and I went to a restaurant for dinner. We had a little wine and a relaxed conversation. Time passed slowly. You were right. If I worked hard, I could make my dream come true. Tilting her glass of wine, Lily said as if realizing it gradually. Thank you. I shook my head at her. I only gave you advice and inspired you. You should thank yourself for your hard work. I only thank the people I want to thank. You should accept it gratefully. Yeah. You are welcome. I thought she looked satisfied with my response. Then I noticed that she was blushing a little bit. And you know what? I felt that she must be thinking the same thing as I was. It was just a hunch, but I felt I had to say it to her. Lily, will you date me? Before she could continue, I looked her in the eye and told her so. Lily was taken back, and for a moment I wondered if I had made the wrong move. But her face immediately changed to a happy expression, and she said, I'd love to. She answered with tears in her eyes. That's how we ended up going out. We have numerous dreams and goals that we wish to accomplish together. Whatever challenges await us, if we work together, we will be able to conquer them. If we continue to work hard, our dreams will come true. I met Amelia when I was a college student. She was famous among other faculty members for her beauty, sociability, and popularity with both men and women. When I started dating Amelia, do you have something on her? Everyone was surprised, and my friend mocked me. It all started when she spoke to me. What are you reading? I was reading novels in my spare time. This one. I showed her the cover of the book. Oh, I know this book too. It's not by a famous author, but it's interesting, isn't it? She laughed, and I easily fell in love with her at first sight. From there, our contact gradually increased, and when I could no longer contain my feelings for her. Hey! Yeah? When are you going to confess your feelings for me? She turned away from me shyly and sulkily, saying so. Oh, What? Will you go out with me? With this, I bowed my head to her and held out my hand. I'd love to. The image of her holding my hand when she said this is still fresh in my mind. When we were alone, we often talked about our future. I want to get married after I graduate from college and have children. I want to build a happy family with you. Seeing her giggle like that warmed my heart to the core. She was proactive in everything and had many friends, unlike me, who is cautious and reserved. There were many times when I thought that I didn't deserve her. She, on the other hand, constantly led in a way that supported my backwards mentality. Before I knew it, it had become my normal routine to follow her lead. But being pushed around by her like that was also a happy thing for me at the time. After graduating from college, we could not get married right away, but started living together in an apartment close to each other's workplaces. We soon obtained the consent of both parents. My parents said, I'm surprised to hear that you are dating such a beautiful person. And they were surprised, but I never had a chance to meet her parents. Amelia told me that her parents had given their consent. I wanted to at least introduce myself to them. That's what I thought, but I was so preoccupied with settling into my new life that such ideas had entirely escaped my head. Our new life together was a series of hardships. We were both in unfamiliar environments and workplaces. We were both under a lot of stress and occasionally fought, but we made it through the first 3 years. William? What's wrong? When Amelia had finished eating dinner, she started talking to me in a serious tone. I think I'm pregnant." "Excuse me?" I did not understand what she meant at first. But seeing her happy, bashful expression, I gradually understood the meaning of her words. "When did you notice it?" "I went to the hospital because I wasn't feeling well, and they told me I've been pregnant for 2 months." That day, I was so happy that I cried with joy without any shame. She looked at me and smiled gently. A few months later, we officially got married. Nowadays, you would call this a shotgun marriage. But at the time, I was afraid to meet Amelia's parents for fear of being struck by them. "Gosh, I'm nervous." "It'll be fine, I guess." She encouraged me with a somewhat gloomy expression on her face. I thought at the time that she was just as nervous as I was. The meeting, which I had been so nervous about, went by very easily. I felt rather anticlimaxed. Although I was too nervous to notice it at the time, now that I think about it, Amelia's parents did not seem to be very interested in her. I was completely unaware of the awkwardness. I was so excited since I had finished talking with her parents, and now I was marrying her and we were going to have a baby that I didn't see it. But this must have been the peak of my happiness. If only I had noticed the accumulation of these feelings of awkwardness at that time. Looking back now, I can't help but think of it that way. From that point on, she gradually changed. She had severe morning sickness during her pregnancy, quit her job, and began to stay at home. I worked hard and supported her by doing housekeeping when I got home, wanting to assist her in any way I could. But 2 years later, we divorced. Amelia remained a stay-at-home mom after giving birth to our son, John. It all happened one day. "I appreciate what you were doing every day. I'm off work today, and I'll be watching John, so why don't you go out for a while?" I told her. "That's not necessary. Could you please stop bragging about being the only one working here? It irritates me." Amelia looked unhappy and glad at me. "I'm sorry." She had always been grumpy since the birth of John. I was so surprised by her change that I couldn't say anything to her. One night after that, "I'm home." When I came home and opened the door to the living room, she was sitting on a chair with her head down. On the table was a piece of paper. "What's wrong?" I had a bad feeling about it, but I approached her. "Here, can you fill in the rest?" With that, she went to her bedroom without even looking at me. I was left alone with only the half-filled divorce papers in front of me. In the end, I discussed the divorce with her several times, but she did not change her mind. She got custody of her son. I lost everything at that moment. "Who can handle this task?" Me. Let me do it." "Oh, William, you've been working hard lately, but don't push yourself too hard, okay?" "I'll be fine." From then on, I just worked hard at my job. Despite the fact that Amelia and I had divorced, I still had love for her, and most significantly, my son, John, was a vital part of my life. Even though we were divorced, I was still his father. I wasn't able to see him on a regular basis, but I had to pay child support. With this one thought in mind, I went about my work. It was 6 months later that I met Amelia again. That day, I finished work before lunch, which was unusual. My boss, who was worried about my devotion to work, said,
"Oh, you can take the rest of the day off. I know that you're going to see them after a long time today, right?"
He gave me a half day off. I was grateful to my boss, because I was going to visit Amelia for the first time in a long time, and I was also going to see John, who had turned 2 years old. I opted to go shopping because we had scheduled to meet up at night, even though I had already purchased a gift. I left the office thinking like that. My steps were naturally light. It was then that I saw Amelia. What? When I first saw her, I couldn't believe my eyes. It was the sight of Amelia walking with an unfamiliar man. I was taken aback at first, but gradually recovered my composure. Well, we were divorced, so there was nothing wrong with that. I had no right to tell her what to do with another man since we were divorced. With that in mind, I was ready to return the way I had come when I remembered John. Had she left him in her parents' care? I was somewhat suspicious and decided to follow her, even though I knew I shouldn't. She and the man parted soon after that. But she was strolling aimlessly, like if she didn't know where she was going. Without thinking, I called out to her there. "Amelia?" She shook her shoulders as if surprised and slowly turned around to face me. "Why are you here?" she asked me, her face contorted. She appeared more exhausted than I had ever seen her before. I was curious about it, but I asked, "I just happened to see you earlier. Where's John?" Just when I was about to ask about John, "Stop it!" Amelia shrieked and squatted down. "What?" I was surprised at the suddenness of the event. She knelt, trembling and shaking her head. Her appearance was like that of a small child who is frightened of something. "I can't take it anymore." I was just stunned to see her muttering and shedding tears. I managed to get her up and take her to my place once she had calmed down a little. Amelia was staring down the entire time I was walking with her hand in mine, and she didn't say anything. I was concerned not just about John, but also about Amelia. After safely arriving at my place, I seated her on a chair in the living room and sat across from her. "Have you calmed down a bit?" "Yeah." "I'm glad to hear that. Can I ask what's going on?" She kept her mouth shut for a while in response to my question. Then, perhaps unable to bear the atmosphere, she began to speak little by little. "To be honest, John is in an infant home right now." "An infant home?" I tilted my head at the unfamiliar word. "That's right. It's that I can't raise John anymore." "Excuse me?" I was puzzled, not understanding the meaning of her words, and she began to tell me about her past. Amelia was neglected as a child. Her parents did not provide her with more than the minimal necessities of child rearing. Her parents were not close to begin with, and they rarely spoke to each other as a family. It was when she was in elementary school that she became uncomfortable with this situation. When she arrived at class, she noticed her classmates joyfully conversing with their parents, and she gradually became aware of the disparity between her family and everyone else's. Even so, she still acted cheerfully towards those around her. Even though she was very young, she disliked it when people felt sorry for her. Her dream was to have a happy family. She was very happy when she met me, got into a relationship, and became pregnant. However, the pregnancy, delivery, and the stress of having to raise a child properly were more difficult than she had anticipated. All of these things crushed her. I divorced you because I just wanted to escape reality. You cared for me even when I was tired from work. But that was also a source of stress for me.
Amelia.
I knew I was being selfish. However, I couldn't do anything when I was with you, which made me feel helpless and miserable. Muttering this to herself, she continued, In the end, leaving you didn't change me. On the contrary, I gradually began to feel sorry about John as well. With her divorce and the changes in her life, she made an effort to start anew. But now that she had to raise John alone, she became more cornered. I couldn't help myself when I was alone with John at night. I felt so crazy. I just wanted to run away somewhere. And she left John too. I know, I'm the worst, but... Holding her head and shaking, Amelia was no longer the cheerful person who used to lead me, someone that I used to admire back then. She was stuck, helpless, and in tears. Why? I intentionally muttered to myself. What did you say? She looked up at the sound of my voice. Why didn't you tell me before? I was frustrated by what she said. I wondered why she didn't tell me until now. Was I that unreliable? Such resentment and regret for not having been able to notice her suffering until now clutched at my heart. When she saw me shedding tears, she said, I'm sorry. She just kept saying that. We then went to visit the infant home where John was at. The man who had been with Amelia earlier welcomed us. Apparently, Amelia had met him to ask him about how John was doing. She had met him outside rather than at the infant home because she had been avoiding it due to her guilt over John. It had been a long time since I had seen John, and he welcomed us with a smile. I sincerely felt that I wanted to do my best for him once again, and this time I wanted to do it together with Amelia. We started talking about starting a family again after that. I had always admired Amelia. She'd always led me, and I felt safe following her. I thought that she'd be okay on her own. Somewhere in back of my mind, I had that thought. But this incident made me realize that I had been relying too much on her. Since then, we had changed little by little. We kept in touch often and made efforts to know each other's feelings. And when Amelia's feelings gradually calmed down, Hey, I know I don't have the right to say this, but this time I want to build a happy home for the three of us. Amelia was determined and looked straight at me. Don't worry, I'll be here to support you this time. That day, the three of us walked towards our home, holding hands.